Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fandom Collective YouTube channel. I love that freaking music right there. That is pretty good, stuck in the head, like good elevator music or good lobby music is what I call that. Anyway, that is a comic that is launching tonight by Peter Gilmore art called Rocket Gal, and that looks like it's going to be one hootenanny of a good time type of a comic book. So we shall see. I don't know if they're launching it on his channel or on Mandy Summers' channel, but we shall see. I think they launch in like 3 hours, so they'll be available on Indiegogo. It's a cool little comic book, but today we've got a cool little guest over here that we like to call Bob, but he is the script doctor. Introduce yourself, my friend.
Hello, I'm the script doctor, aka Bob, or if you catch me on other streams, aka Bill. Either one works for me. I'm cool with it.
Oh, it was Bill? Oh, I thought it was Bob. Oh, yeah.
No, I like being Bob over here. It makes it special.
Okay, I call you Bill. Tom calls you Bob. That's fine.
Okay.
So you're B word regardless. Anyway,
I'm definitely a B word. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you arrived just in time, and I was hoping you'd be late because I had a little thingy that I'm going to introduce here for streams, and that's called "Whenever You're Late, You Get to Tell a Story." Because in my old high school, there was a teacher that whenever a student was late, they had an assignment where they had to write a full page of why they were late. Can be as creative as they want to, because usually they say, "Hey, why are you late?" Well, I had to go catch the bus, and then my granola bar dropped, and as I went for that, somebody ran over my fingers with the bike, and then I tried to go, but then my pants ripped, so I had to go. You know what I mean? It's like the story. And that would be fun. But that's okay. If Tom comes in tonight, then we'll have him do a story because he might be late. We'll see. But we also got the Flipster with me as well, as always. Usually, what's up, Flipster?
Hey guys. Hey Bob. How are you, Bob?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I just love saying Bob, man. I know. Well, I'm gonna convert it to Bill, of course, but
okay.
Bob's a good name, Bob. Yeah.
I'm going to cut it down the middle and start calling you Billy Bob.
Or we can and just Bob.
There you go.
Billy Bob.
Bob
Billy
or
Bob.
Bill. You can go Bill.
Oh, yeah. You get your damn hands off her.
That's Tom Wilson's a great guy. I've been in some rooms with him, but never been able to formally meet him. It's been sad though, but he's a funny guy.
So close, so close.
Yep, one day I'll get there.
I got it.
Awesome.
It is a pleasure to have you on, though, Script Doctor. Every time we've met on stream, you've always had some extremely interesting conversation material pieces, and your experience in the industry is just awesome. I know you're limited on what you can say, but really a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. You're a riot. I love your videos. Jeff, I love your little fan film reviews. They're great. Pointing people into direction of other filmmakers is always a positive because you never know what you might find out there. And Flipped, whenever you do a funny voice video, it just cracks me up. So look forward to the next one.
Oh, yeah, we've got some skits coming up, buddy. You're going to love them.
Oh, that's great.
Hey, we got a lot on the schedule, man. And yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, pointing directions toward, people that put in work that aren't in the industry, I think is pretty good, because that's where, most of the creativity is going and the passion, and people have the technology and means to be able to make something better than just, it's like a $20 film. No. That could be a $100 film, but still look like a Hollywood film.
Definitely, when you try to compare it to the 90s and anything earlier, the technology is kind of right on par. You can make a really great kind of retro effects level film that holds up. And what I've noticed, especially with some of the fan films, like the one of the Power Ranger ones, I think it's where they got all the different helmets and the cross amalgamation through various different Rangers. They've got a pretty neat little story there. Like, the acting's obviously amateurish, which is perfectly fine, but they explore cool ideas and like cool revenge and then character dynamics. It's good storytelling for a good modest budget.
You're talking about the Power Rangers Unworthy?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, Unworthy Productions. Yeah, those guys have been doing great, and their process is amazing. I want to interview them sometime because they've been really, their creativity is great with it. And Power Rangers is like a thing where a lot of people won't think there's that much they can do. But I love the Arbiter, the First Ranger, and all that. They put so much into the designs of all the costumes and stuff. That must be difficult to manage to get all those different costumes.
Well, I mean, I know there's some base ones that you can buy, and I think there's just like really clever and creative hobbyists and costume developers that they've got working with. Because I've seen some people do some amazing stuff with just like $10 of PVA foam. So like you'd be surprised how much you can, how creative some people can get when they're really, really tight for money. And that's kind of why I've always been against like massive budget films, because if you have a problem and you got a lot of money, you just throw money at it and the problem goes away, but you don't necessarily create something like a random act of brilliance detail or stumble upon something that ends up making the product better than what you were originally intending.
Yeah, kind of like a recent sci-fi movie I saw in December. The effects looked great, the costumes were amazing, just not a lot of substance in the story.
Yeah, that's a byproduct of a lot of not so much a rush job, but their priorities are kind of shifted away from what makes a story rewatchable as opposed to what excites people instantly. And yeah, that's one of the things that I've always come into issues with when I was starting out amateurly, when I started to get professional, when I bounced between both, and when I start meeting other writers. It's really hard to shift the excitement from the set piece to the thing that's going to bring people back, which is always going to be your character and how they address the conflicts that they're faced.
Agreed. Like story, I mean, obviously, is something original story is really lacking in the industry all around lately. And if it's an amateur production, as long as that story's there, and the amateur productions do seem to have really good stories as of late, really strange turn of events. But I think that's just I think it's credit to itself in a small film industry.
To a degree, you're absolutely correct. I would say Disney is kind of the biggest culprit of lack of originality. Universal, just even though they haven't had the best of successes, at some point they have swung for the fences and tried to give us something different. I mean, I don't like Alex Kurtzman one bit, but no one would ever come up with a mummy that way for a mummy film, or a story that way for a mummy film. I'll give them that. Warner Brothers has always tried to be somewhat original. They don't do many remakes. They always try to do something different. With their DC property, Joker is a very original take on the character, even though it harkens back to a lot of familiar films. It's just they sort of they make Joker a little bit more active than, say, the Rupert Pupkin, who his only active trait is he just goes down to Jerry Lewis's office and waits there in order to meet with him. He doesn't actually do the stuff that he's told to do that would get him on the show, where Joker isn't told to do the stuff to get on the show. He does it already on his own accord, because that's not his goal. Isn't really to be on, Robert De Niro's show. He just wants to be a comedian and make people laugh. And even though he's terrible at it, it gains him the attention to go on to the show, and then you get that kind of story. And that's just like the D plot of the film. There's 3 other plots going on in that. And when you start to take it apart and realize that it's a lot deeper than what is on the surface, you then kind of think, yeah, why aren't we seeing more of these films? And they are out there, but they don't have the level of marketing that a Marvel or a Disney film has. And that's why they kind of slip by the radar, and they're difficult to see. Because all of 2019, what movies were we talking about? All the MCU movies, Star Wars issues. That was pretty much it. I don't recall a whole lot of websites or YouTube videos about any of the other stuff aside from the flops.
So yeah, there's lots of average films that came out the last couple of years, but I mean, those ones aren't hardly worth talking about, to be honest. Like, I remember I went and saw like Hotel Artemis. I saw 12 Strong. I saw Annihilation. I saw Anna. I saw these littler ones that not that many people talked about, and literally nobody really covered much. It's just like, oh, they existed, but that's it.
Yeah,
they weren't really good either, though. To be honest, I'd literally just call them average. They're not horrible, not great, just kind of average.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I'm just trying to remember some of the other movies that came out
Well, here,
last
I'll have a
year.
question while you're thinking. I have a question that I feel
Yes.
like a lot of people don't really know or don't think about. I guess it's like, for all we know, I mean, okay, a lot of people probably think about this, but it's like for all we know, there's been hundreds of fantastic, like perfect style films, but we never see them. Like I've been wondering that because we think about, oh, there's this film is great or this film's almost perfect, but they don't come out too often. We just want the filmmakers to make something great, but it's like for all we know, I mean, either whether it's American or a foreign one or an independent, a small one, something. For all we know, they've had a bunch of these films, and one thing I've been wondering is even if like there are some perfect films, would main audiences like them? Like, would main audiences even like these really well written, perfectly written stories?
Well, don't really know many movies even from years ago that are I would consider perfectly written.
Okay, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have asked
I
that,
understand what you said. Like, what's the one that when you watch it, you come away completely satisfied, and it's really hard to sort of identify an issue with. Yeah, those movies are few and far between. They usually, if they don't find an audience in the theaters, they definitely find an audience in home video and uh, through digital. Um, One thing that kind of like, well, how do I want to word this properly? Sometimes there are some great movies that end up getting cult status just because it's not to a contemporary audience, but the audience grows over the long term. And you get movies like Rocky Horror Picture Show, a lot of John Carpenter films like Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog, The Thing, Escape from New York. Those are ridiculously well written, well paced, well directed, well acted films, but they weren't massive box office successes like something of Jaws or Close Encounters or Star Wars for those time periods. I can't think of anything that even scraped the surface of that good in the 90s that wasn't really like a Quentin Tarantino film at that time, because that was all writing, minimal sets, minimal special effects. It was all about the conflict, the tension, and the characters. Um, but those movies did also, they sort of hit your cult audience and then took a couple steps further because everybody was just blown away by the narrative style and the poetic dialogue that Quentin Tarantino provided thanks to his coke-fueled writing at that time.
Okay, yeah, I think those are some good points that you bring up and good films that you bring up too. But I guess to be more specific to what I'm trying to ask is like when we see a crappy films these days, we say that we want good story because they're not focusing on story. But I mean, if like there are some really well written stories, I'm just wondering if the mass audiences would really care. Which ultimately, like if you make a really well written film and it's like, let's say it's well advertised and it's there's even some stars in it or something, but it doesn't do very well, then I don't think people would do them that often either because it didn't, the mass audience didn't get it, even if it's a great story and it's like really good, but it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not what the
yeah.
masses really want to see, even though like, film people and people that want to look at this kind of thing would love it.
Oh yeah, so you're talking about like more of a cinephile type approach because the hardest thing to reconcile when you're writing is what is good, because it is subjective. There are mechanical aspects you can hit, like being very clear with what the premise is, who your characters are, what their goals are, what their conflicts are. Those things are like the mechanical aspect. It's how you execute it, how you make it your own. What type of voice do you have when you're bringing to the story? That's all subjective because you can have very mechanical films. Most recently, you have Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a very mechanical, paint by the numbers films. It hits everything it needs to hit at the point it needs to hit, um, and it did well. I mean, when it came to, I guess, the presentation of Sonic originally, that was the only criticism that movie really got that was kind of justifiable, that allowed the director and Paramount to say, you know what, yeah, that was a bad call there. We can fix this and we can actually like make some money doing it. The difference being something like, say, The Last Jedi, when it's not so much the visuals that are the issue, it's just the treatment of characters. So that's how you have the two differences here. Um, Both instances the fans are asking for something that would be more appealing to them. However, in one case, we have the Sonic where they know specifically exactly what they want for appealing, because I didn't see any comments saying that they didn't like the story, they didn't like the treatment of the character. It was just the visual was weird and frightening. With The Last Jedi, because so many things were held in secrecy, it wasn't until after the fact that fans got upset, and the byproduct was The Rise of Skywalker. So, and that had, regardless of what a lot of people want to say, that had on the surface a lot of things that people wanted. It had Rey doing her training. It had Luke come back and say that, his mentality from The Last Jedi was wrong. It had Lando reintroduced to the story.
The holdover maneuver, 1 in a million.
Yeah. It had an actual lightsaber battle between Kylo Ren and Rey, because they didn't have a lightsaber battle in the Last Jedi. They just fought those red guys, and no lightsabers clashed in that. So it has those things, but just because it has those things, it doesn't do what the story wants.
Right.
And that's the role of the dice when it comes to any movie. You can have all the mechanical aspects that would make that would convey what the story is, but whether or not it's going to be good or great or terrible is still up to the audience, and you can't hold them responsible for their own opinions. You just gotta hope that what you're telling and how you're telling it is going to resonate with the people en masse, so that they'll tell their friends and it'll get bigger. I can't really think of a really well-written movie that was heavily well advertised that didn't do well with audiences offhand.
Child's Play, maybe?
The recent one with Mark Hamill doing the voice?
Yeah, the 2019 release.
2019 release.
Or even Godzilla from 2019.
I heard that Godzilla was pretty interesting. The only complaint I got was that they couldn't see the monster battles as clearly in the theaters. I haven't checked that one out myself. I've been meaning to. Same with Child's Play. The only thing I heard is that they missed the opportunity because it's not. Is it a computer program that goes rogue, or do they still use the soul transferring to the doll?
I don't know. I didn't watch it, to be honest.
Okay.
I looked up the 2019.
Because I can't tell if that was well written or not, because I didn't hear much talk about it after the fact.
I kind of gauge them by how quickly they disappear from the theater. As far
That's
as
not a bad gauge. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm looking on a website about the 75 movies that were ranked worst in 2019. There's a whole bunch, but I think this is probably a little bit, their opinion, sort of just what they thought. But that one was listed at the bottom, to be honest. No, it was number 4 of 75, Child's Play. And I haven't seen it, to be fair, but I don't remember it staying in the theater long.
No, I don't remember it staying in the theater a lot long either. I think it was maybe a 6-week run at most, at least massively, and then it kind of dwindled away. The other issue that people are still trying to figure out is Netflix, because you have a fairly kind of a rising popular movie, which is Uncut Gems, which is the Adam Sandler film. And I haven't checked it out yet, but a lot of people I know have been talking about it because it's a story that is really intricate, yet is simply executed very simply. And you can follow it along, but there's a whole lot of stuff going on about it. It's like involves like gems and bribery and basketball and like all these weird things. But apparently it's really, really well written. And the guys that wrote it spent 10 years writing the script.
Wow.
So lots and lots of drafts going on that. And not many writers actually spend that much time going through those. I think it was like over 160 drafts, and they had each draft changed because they had a different actor brought on for whatever role they were doing it, so they wanted to write to their strengths. So that's why you have multiple drafts. But apparently it's really good, so I've got to make some time to watch that movie, and it's my own tastes, because every once in a while when Adam Sandler's not doing his Happy Gilmore type of stuff, he really does bring in a really good performance. So you just kind of have to sift through the weirder. weird stuff.
Adam Sandler is such a split for me. He's like I like half his stuff. Like
Yeah.
some of his projects are great. Even some of his goofy ones are great. But it kind of depends on what level, like what emotions can he actually bring out, or a character can he make you feel enough or not. And those goofy ones, and then the ones he wants to make you feel, he can make you feel and kind of make you laugh. Mr. Deeds is like a good in betweener of his comedy and drama. I feel because there's
that was also
moments,
a remake too, so he managed to pull off.
I don't even know that. Wow.
Oh, wow. That I liked. Well, I did not like Zohan, the Zohan, but I liked.
Zohan, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
a 50.
Yeah, me either. But yeah, he did good like Longest Yard, and that was also a remake. That one is pretty good.
Burt
I'd
Reynolds
say.
one is also pretty good. I would advise checking that one out.
Which one?
Definitely. Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds did one in the 70s.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. The Longest Yard. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
that
I gotta
was
get myself a Burt Reynolds collection because he's got a lot of really good movies, and some of them I haven't seen in years, just because I only ever caught them on television. And even at that short time when I did work at a video store, we had like 2 Burt Reynolds films, and one of them was like the Dukes of Hazzard. Like,
Yeah.
That's not enough, man.
That makes sense. But so like I kind of want to stay on this topic because I haven't been able to talk about this really with somebody else that has some insight in this type of industry, actually, to give that perspective too a little bit. And like you mentioned Tarantino films earlier, and like Kill Bill is like probably his main one I've seen. Like I liked Inglourious Bastards for maybe 2 scenes that are in that film that I really loved. They're like top 10 best scenes, but I did not like the movie at all. Like just like overall, I would not say that I liked Inglourious Bastards, but like Kill Bill 1 and 2, I fucking loved those. Like those were fantastic, and those didn't feel like a normal type of storytelling. That was like the first time I saw it done in such a weird way, but it kind of worked, especially if you watch 1 and 2 back to back. Like 1 is just packed with action the whole time, and then episode 2 slows you way the hell down and gets real good character type stuff, and still, it kind of makes you feel a little more close and claustrophobic, but in a good way. And it's
But the brilliance alone, and I'll just ask you the questions, and you can share them with the audience, which is, what is the bride after in those first 10 minutes when you see her?
I'm trying to remember now. What is she after?
Because how are we introduced to the bride?
Okay, I'm kind of forgetting because there's so many flashbacks.
You mean buried?
Well, she's actually when that movie opens, we get a close up on her face. She's bleeding.
She's on the floor, right?
She's on the floor. She's in a wedding dress,
black and white at the beginning, right? Okay.
And then you get the gunshot, and then it goes to the opening credits, and then we find her in the hospital. And when she finally wakes up, she checks her stomach, and her baby is missing. So you're like, oh my God, like you've got all these changes happening to her. So you understand her motivation, which is she's in a place she doesn't recognize. Her baby is missing, and she's slightly aware that the nurse or the orderly of this hospital has been abusing her and selling her body to truckers, essentially.
Well, see, I think that part of that, the hospital part, came later. I think because didn't she first fight the one chick in the house and then have the kid come by? That was first. So like a lot of the events are out of order, or they like show them in a different way or something. I don't know, the way it's shown, like it was so weird, but I liked it too. Like at the end, it pieced it all together in a way that works.
The editing sort of it drips the story slowly. It doesn't hit you with a floodgate of stuff, so it works. It isolates each situation, and it goes one step at a time. So yeah, it goes to the black and white, then it goes to her at the house with that great fight scene, and then they stop when the kid comes home, and then we learn from the bride that she had a child too. So we get a little bit of, and it's a natural form of exposition, because it's like, oh, she has a kid. Oh, I have a kid too. She would be your age as well. And then you kind of get a bit more of a deeper relationship, and then it just kind of builds, and it does so in a very careful manner, because it goes one step at a time. It's very focused on what to do. Each scene or sequence is like its own little mini movie, and it just keeps on building up. But there's a very strong goal, which is that she's on a pathway to revenge, because she was betrayed by her teacher and former lover, and it cost her 4 years of her life and her child. So you have a very easily understandable. You're able to very easily understand why this character is doing what she's doing, and then we're slowly learning how she's able to do what she's doing because she has this history as being this group of assassins, and where she was trained, and how good she was before she met Pai Mei and all those people. And it's really, really a great character study that blends East and Western storytelling. First with the dramatic actions of Eastern anime and things of that nature, and then has like a spaghetti Western thing where it kind of has like that man with no name just on a mission to get justice or get revenge, and it's one of the best films for crossing those genres.
Yeah, it was done very unique, and you mentioned the anime thing. I mean, some people don't like that there's that like full-on anime, full-on scene in the film when they show the history of the Asian girl. I forget the name.
Yes, I know you're talking about Lucy Liu's character.
Yeah, and they literally show an anime scene in animation. It's like I liked that effect too because it was graphic in its own way, and it's like, yeah, they could have done that in live action, but how much more effect would that have really had compared to this, where they can do different emotions with the animations? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, he asks permission to basically just say, sit back, relax. I know where I'm going with this story. Don't worry. And he does that with the confidence of those first few scenes before we get to that point. Trying to think, there's a lot to go through with the
and then when Lucy Liu cuts all the guys' heads off, or cuts the one guy's head off, it's just like, yeah, okay. And like when she fights the crazy 88s or whatever, it was like, at first it seems like, wow, this is impossible, this is stupid, Mary Sue-ish, but by the end, and she like spanks that kid, it's kind of like, okay, so pretty much all these guys are untrained swordsmen is the impression I'm getting. Maybe a few of them,
they're showmanship as opposed to it's more showmanship than practicality, and there's a little bit of truth to that. There's a lot of people in organized crime that are not the best shots when it comes to wielding guns. Even the best marksman, I think, is between 13 and 20% accuracy. So when you want to play with something like that on, especially in a samurai level, there's things that you can do to get away with it, but it's supposed to be a fantastical story for a reason. A woman on revenge. They do play around with some other cool stuff, like they have the bride using the reflection of her sword to see who's behind her. So trying to just telegraph that she's got some more skill than what her opponents have. And the choreography is quite good because there's a lot of instances where more than one person is coming after the bride in that scene, and she's fending off lots at the same time. The most unbelievable aspect is her endurance to go through it all that much. Like, a normal person would be out of breath after like 90 seconds of doing the stuff that she's doing.
Exactly, and that whole fight is after she had to fight with the other people in the first place. So it's like, it's even more crazy. But I guess,
is she on cocaine? Did we miss a scene of her shooting up some cocaine?
Seriously. But I guess my whole point to bring that up was like, that's not an average like storytelling style that I would ever see. But goddamn, that was done so well.
No, it's not an average, but it is, even though it's told out of sequential order with regards to the timeline for the bride, it still fits the beginning, middle, end with climax and lowest point, and
it hits the same beat. Yeah, the beats all hit where they need to.
Yeah, and that's kind of the brilliance with, especially a movie like Pulp Fiction, which is again also told out of sequential order. Reservoir Dogs also to an extent. It still has a beginning, middle, and end. It's just not in the doesn't line up with the chronological order of the characters we're following. And that's not just used for a narrative purpose. That's just used because he's trying to hook you in with the most compelling story first, and then expand and build on that world throughout the rest of the film. And it's a very tricky method to pull off. Not many people can do it because Tarantino did write the first draft of that script in chronological order. And
now, I understand he's not going to be doing many more video movies. Only one more.
Well, he's part of the old school adage that a great director only really does 10 movies in their career. That was at the time when it took like 3 to 4 years to make a movie. So, 10 years would be 40-year career, essentially. So Tarantino says that, he's going to do 10 movies. Kill Bill technically counts as one, both volumes. So he's got that. And then we don't know what's going to happen afterwards. If he does those 10, will he retire? Who knows? He might get a brilliant idea to do another one and be like, well, 10 plus 1,
Well, what's really odd is he'd said that. Now, first of all, for me, that was a little odd. But then there was this giant rumor that he was going to do a Star Trek film. But now it's over. He's not going to do that. Is that true?
Yeah, they're not going to do a Star Trek film. I don't have it from the horse's mouth, but there's enough rumor going around that Viacom CBS is not going to be greenlighting anything Star Trek through Bad Robot, because they have, I think, 18 or less months to get a Star Trek film in production to maintain their rights to the film, the film license, and to make more movies. And because none of those 3 Star Trek films made the money that they wanted to based on the investment, their Viacom CBS doesn't want anything to do with Bad Robot in that regard.
Oh, and Tarantino's through Bad Robot?
Yeah. Well, no, Tarantino's not with Bad Robot, but Bad Robot approached Tarantino to try and get him interested in writing a script so that they can get outside financing to encourage Paramount to give the go-ahead to make the movie. I think over the next year, we're going to be seeing a lot of stunt pieces where other directors and other writers are going to be brought in to sort of try and develop a Star Trek 4, and it's just going to go nowhere because Paramount does not want to do it with this particular production company.
Oh, okay. It's just so interesting to hear your industry, like, sort of inside info. It doesn't really, I mean, I guess you wouldn't say it if it was not able to be said, but it's really interesting your take on it anyway.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, my stuff is pretty limited. Like, if you ever got someone like, say, Aaron Sorkin, you'd probably you'd have way more information to divulge than little old me. But yeah, there's a lot of the politics in Hollywood aren't partisan like how we recognize them in the normal system. It's basically like, we need money for this so that we can make this passion project. So we'll make this crappy movie that will give us some financing and maneuverability. And then, I made a deal with my best friend that I'm going to put them in a movie. So I have to give them a leading role because they're the ones that paid for a lot of my way to get here. Like, there's a lot of weird quid pro quo stuff going on there. It's all fueled by money and how much they can make and how much reputation they can earn within a single project and how much they can ride that out before they get discovered that they're a fraud. Because everyone in Hollywood is a fraud to some degree.
Oh, wow.
We don't know what we're doing. We're just hoping that we don't get caught.
Right.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's good. I was gonna follow up here with the question of because we mentioned originality earlier, and like Disney being like one of the least original type of companies. Do they make anything that is original? Like, there's some things that come to mind that might be original, but these days I have no freaking clue what the hell is original anymore or not. Has they made any original properties?
Disney?
Yeah.
Not in 20 years. I think they're doing a remake of Peter Pan. They announced today.
Like, I mean, even their like Disney movies, they're like Brink and Double Team, and those like direct to TV movies.
Oh man,
they used to make the 13th year and all those.
I mean, that'd probably be the closest thing to it. I mean, if they're very low budget and they're seldom advertised, then yeah, they're probably going to be the most original, and they're hoping to get that money through, like, you have these window markets when you make a movie. So especially if it's going to be for TV. So you have like first window, which means the people that buy a first window presentation, they spend usually the most money because they're the first ones showing it to the public. It's usually on like a cable network or network television as a TV movie special, or like your Lifetime movies, or sometimes they do movies on the Home and Garden television network, which is always weird for me because I think that's like a how-to channel. But you
Yeah.
see some stuff on there. And so your first window kind of like pays for the movie, and then if it gets popular through word of mouth, you then what's got a second window, which is when other affiliates sort of buy it, like streaming services and other networks and cable access shows. And then you have a third window, and then it just keeps going and going and going. And eventually, over the years, over the long term, you'll make some money off of that. That's where you're probably going to see. Well, you'll see original and derivative content. Like a lot of the Lifetime movies are pretty much all the same. Like every romantic comedy is, girl wants guy and bumps into him on the street randomly.
Let's talk about Lifetime.
Hijinks ensue, and then they get together. And then you have the story about like a kid and their pet, which is pretty frequent, or a child detective is always another frequent one. So I mean, the other question you have to ask is, originality is a double-edged sword, because sometimes you can have a really original movie and be like, what the heck is this?
Right.
Not recognize it at all.
Imagine it happens more often than, wow, this is fantastic.
Usually with your independent films, I've seen a so-called original movie where the only original thing about it was a horror film, and the murderer killed a person with a severed head from someone else they killed earlier. Like they just bludgeoned them to death with a severed head, which was the most original aspect about the film and also quite entertaining. But everything else about it was just like, you can't follow what's going on because it's trying to be too original and too different.
Right.
Your originality comes from the approach of a story, because there's the old adage, there's only like 7 real stories out there. I can never remember all 7 of them.
Everything else, variation of it in some way, shape, or form, told differently, but it's inspired from it. But where I was going with this, I'm trying to break down Disney a little bit. So it's like Lilo and Stitch or the movie Brave. Like, are those based on anything, or are those original enough? I don't even know.
Lilo and Stitch, I think, is original, but those are from the Eisner days, I believe.
I think so. Those are like early 2000s.
Brave is Pixar, and that might be based off of an Scottish tale, but I'm not 100% sure on it. But it's definitely, I mean, it was a fairly well-received film. Didn't make a whole lot of money, not much as other Pixar films at that time, but it was still pretty decent for what it was. There are a lot of things out there like adaptations that we don't realize are adaptations. I think The Green Knight is an adaptation of a very old story, but people are going to look at it like an original film.
Okay. I mean, I guess okay, that answers a lot of what I was asking, pretty much. So
well, the originality is always the execution, right? Because you're going to have stories like man versus man, man versus nature, man versus beast, man versus themselves. Right. Those are your.
I guess what I mean by original is it, like, you know how Frozen is like an adaptation from a literal story that was already told, or like The Little Mermaid was told before, but this is the Disney version. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
like original being not adapted from something specifically, I guess. Like even Star Wars wasn't specifically adapted from something. It took extreme influence from many different things, but it became its own thing.
Yeah, it morphed through its own thing from time over time. I mean, the very first draft of Star Wars is a ridiculously political one, talking about like Aqualay and the politics and the princess and what the Empire is doing, and Luke Skywalker is a general and he's training Anakin Starkiller, and Anakin Starkiller's father is like mostly machine because he's been in so many battles, and they have Darth Vader, who's just a guy with a rebreather mask, and They fight the Death Star twice, and Chewbacca is two different characters named Chewbacca, one a human and one a Wookiee, and it's a big mess. It's very different, very Flash Gordon-y.
Interesting.
Of its time, with a little bit of Buck Rogers and some like Wizard of Oz in there as well. But that came over time. Like that's one of the things a lot of writers told me when I was just starting out was, write your fan fiction. And then once you write your fan fiction, change all the names so that it's unique. And then don't write that. Then write a follow-up story to that fan fiction. Like what adventure would you put them on next? And then once you get that story out of the way, write a third one of what stories after that. And then that's going to be your original film. And it's not going to be anything like what you the follow up or the first one that you did. So that's how you're going to have your more original story, because you're forcing yourself to keep it. You're forcing yourself to build off the simple change, like the name changes first, and then you're like going off in your own direction afterwards. And once you get those 2 sections removed, or maybe up to 3 sections removed, depending on how familiar it still feels, you're eventually going to land on your own unique take on an idea of that type. And that's how you can come up with a new series.
That's a very interesting approach. I've not heard of that type of approach before.
Yeah, so for instance, I know you're a fan of Power Rangers, so write a Power Ranger fan fiction, then change the names to make it not Power Rangers, and then say, okay, now that I have this team, what other adventure can I put this team, this new change team into? And then from there, after that adventure, write a third follow-up of what adventure that is, and that will be your introduction. That'll be the piece you show to the rest of the world of your new series.
That's actually funny that you bring Power Rangers up, because I was going to bring that up soon as well, because like the American version adapted their stuff from a random Sentai one, and they made it their own type of story in their own universe. Like they take all these elements and characters and things that happen in the Sentai, but they make it its own thing. And like if you're to compare them side by side, they are telling very different stories. So much so to where the American one has the same Rangers like go on for 3 seasons, as to where the other one, it's just
every year there's a new team,
every single one. But then it goes even further than that. And then when they switch over to the next one, which is Zeo, they have the same people that were the Rangers of before gain this new power and new stuff and continue the same story thread. And then they continue the thread all the way to in space, where the Zordon era finally ends. And that's, then they do the every year have new ones. But with it not being like passing the torch specifically, it's new ones come up after that point. But they still exist all in the same universe, and they sometimes have cameos from other ones. But in the Sentai, I don't know how much of that they specifically do, but I know they cross over like every single season. But I don't think it's the same story thread really.
No, it's not. The Super Sentai stuff is fantastic. They before I think 97, they didn't do many crossovers between series, but they did some. So Zyuranger, which is what Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is based off of, was a really tight 50 episode story, really fun, and the fact that Saban was able to get 3 seasons out of that, plus the Die Ranger, which if you can find that Sentai, check that out. That's a great Sentai. Has a lot
I'm
of
looking into all this stuff now, actually, so I'll be looking into that very soon.
Yeah, it has some good Star Wars allegory to it, and it's got some nice character arcs. I haven't seen the one that's based off of Zeo yet, but I do have it. I was given a digital copy by a friend who he bought the DVDs and he ripped them for me.
If you have time, I do Power Ranger streams on Saturday and on Saturdays now. And
cool.
it'd be cool to have you as a guest, because I'm trying to get, so far, like I've pretty much been the main knowledge holder as far as the people on the panel. Like I know more than them, but Angelus Draven, he knows a whole bunch too, and he's like looking into things currently as we speak too. And it's like it'd be cool to have a couple people that know different stuff than I do as well.
Yeah, I competed to write the Power Rangers movie in 2014.
Damn, dude,
and
that's a fun story.
They did not. I mean, a lot of people liked it, but Lionsgate just decided not to go with mine. They ended up getting some other writers with more of a name, because everybody pitched and sent in a script to them, and they were also looking for other scripts as well. I think they even reached out to like amateur writers, because they're desperate to get some sort of take on the property that could go for franchise potential.
Wow, it's like, do they even have a clue why they'd be making one really, and what the hell to do with this, considering like how many shows have come out? Like, did they just go, yeah, people like that, right? Yeah, okay, let's make a movie. Like,
from what I heard, a lot of the people that were at Lionsgate that wanted to do a Power Rangers movie were diehard fans of the original Mighty Morphin series, and they really liked, I think, all the seasons all the way up till before Disney purchased Power Rangers. I personally think that In Space is like the best closing off to that series. Like, you didn't need to follow it up afterwards, but the fact that they did was quite beneficial, because there've been some good ones after that.
Time Force, I'd say, is one of the best. As far as the
yeah,
American.
Time Force is really good. It's kind of like started its own thing there.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better than what it should have been, considering like season 2 and 3 of Mighty Morphin was kind of weird. And also,
Mighty
I
Morphin
didn't
was
like the
kind of
fact
weird,
how
to be
they.
honest.
I wasn't a fan of how they kept on manipulating Jason David Frank's Tommy character to be like the best ranger. When we're introduced to him, he's always like, not hanging out with his friends or putting his communicator away, so he's never able to help them. And they made him irresponsible, where the Sentai's based off of the character's losing his powers and his life anyway. So they should have not really lost his life, but like pull in that storyline that they did later on, which is basically his powers are fading away, because then he can still keep him involved, still keep him like responsible and kind of in that pseudo leadership role. But they didn't introduce him that way, so that left a bitter taste, at least in my mouth, with this character for a long time.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I love the character, but I also think he's not one of the best characters. He's a favorite for most people because he's in 225 episodes. But
I know.
I mean, I feel like he's
institutionalized
when he was the Green Ranger. He had that was, I think that's when he had his most character, because he had the risk of losing his powers all the time, and the fact that he started out being evil, like those were good additions to him. And he's like, can they trust me? Am I going to lose my powers now and I'm going to be tempted back? What the hell's going to happen here? I kind of like that dynamic. And then once he became the White One, I mean, I don't know. I thought it got kind of lame for a while.
Yeah,
I'm like, and then he has okay stuff in Dino Thunder when he comes back as the Black Ranger and mentor, but I still also I feel like he doesn't have enough doubt, or like he's always positive, and I'm kind of like, can I like see you sulk for a bit or something, like feel regret, or he
never makes a mistake. That's the other part.
Like he created the villains in that whole series of the Dino Thunder, so I'm like, you should be like, wow, this is all my freaking fault. Anybody that gets hurt, that's on me. Like, but he doesn't. He's like, whatever.
It's to recognize that and then to be actively wanting to correct it and learn from that mistake. Like, because the last thing you want, especially for your main character, is a dweller. Dwellers are not fun to watch. You get sick and tired of them. Your audiences get frustrated when they're like, just grow the hell up and do something, because all they do is sit around and mope and be like, I'm so sad and dapper. That was one of the flaws with Spider-Man as a character for a long time, is that he would be the hero, but anytime he wasn't in that costume, or even if he was just web slinging through the streets, he's like complaining and whining about like, woe is me, all these issues I have.
Yeah. I guess
the rest of development, he's never responsible, even though he preaches responsibility.
Yeah, I guess to see him like bear some burden rather than just because I don't know, he was good for a long while and he's good in a lot of episodes, but he's also pretty bland for the rest. Is what I'd say.
Oh, he's not an actor, so like there's also that.
Pretty bad. I mean, there's some bad in there too, and it's like, I don't know, it just could have been better. Sorry to take this onto a Power Ranger type of route.
No, that's okay, because there's a great thing that not a lot of Power Ranger fans recognize. And I don't even think even like the writers of the show recognized it either. But in that very first episode, when Zordon gives the kids their powers, and all of them decide like, no, I don't want to do this, and they sort of walk away, except for Jason. He's the one that stays there, and he's like thinking about it. And that's kind of like interesting, because why would, like, all the other characters, they don't want the responsibility, but here's a character that actually is willing to consider it and follow it through, because there's something heroic about him there.
Yes, he's like, I think he knows he has some skills. He's not really able to do much other than just be at school and whatever. It's like, oh, you have a chance to help do more, and you're not going to be recognized for it, but this is an honorable thing.
It's basically he's presented with a purpose he never thought was something he would consider.
Right. That's where the other kids just kind of wanted to go back to school and do their own little B kids and stuff.
Yeah, it showed a hint of ambition. It may be guided, but it's like, yeah, maybe I should do this. Maybe, I'm picked for a reason. Maybe I should explore that. It's very mature for a teenager to have that reaction.
If Peter Parker was given the choice to be Spider-Man or something, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know what instead of it being an accident.
That's a great question. Like, because Peter Parker calls his powers a curse quite often, so we know after the fact that he would love to get rid of them and just have a normal life. However, I doubt he would be able to have a normal life even if he didn't have his powers, because he's a kid that just doesn't grow up. That's one of the things that I despise about Spider-Man, even though I like so many other things about him. Because if we just saw him learn from a mistake once in a comic book, I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't probably read them yet. I would probably like him a lot more. I mean, the thing that always gets me is I read an issue where Mary Jane says, "Hey, Peter, I'm doing this thing. Will you be there as my date?" And he goes, "Yes." And I'm thinking, no, man, just say no. Say you have other obligations because you know shit's going to happen and you're not going to be able to do it. Just say, hey, can I make it like, at another time, or can we be more spontaneous?
Don't count on me to be there or something, right?
Like,
hey, I'll try, but I'm pretty busy a lot, so maybe I'll be there, maybe I won't.
have responsibilities. I take care of Aunt May. I got that photography job. I'm going to school. I would love to spend time with you, but I mean,
those are 3 good excuses.
I have to be an adult right now. And you never know. Like, he could always say, "Listen, I'll go," but if the emergency comes up with home or work or something, I gotta held out. Like, he has. There's a lot of plausible reasons for him to give excuses to his superheroing without revealing his superheroing, and also not put the people he cares about into an upset manner because
not make them melodrama
that he has to go.
like they can make less melodrama with that or something. Oh no, he lied to me.
It's a necessary conflict. Like, the worst thing whenever you deal with your cartoon shows or your live action dramas is that the love interest is upset that the hero is lying to them.
Oh my God, are you saying that Spider-Man is like the CW?
A little bit before they do
with the Arrowverse. I mean, with the Arrowverse of the melodrama of, oh no, they kept a secret from me and now I'm found out. It's like, oh no, that's your only drama.
Doesn't do it as much as the CW does, and that started with Smallville first. But
okay.
Like, there's that act. You have to break that mold, especially for Spider-Man. Like, I kind of enjoy the Spider-Man Marvel movies. I mean, I understand an angle to having like Iron Man build the Spider-Man suit, but let Spider-Man be the hero. I don't love it, but I mean, I love how the costume looks. It looks incredibly accurate and faithful. I don't like all the gadgets and computer stuff about it, but what would probably be like a great Spider-Man trilogy would be one where we see the teenager become an actual superhero, where he's able to balance everything out. And they tried doing that with Spider-Man 3, but they just they lost their reins. And Spider-Man 2 is a fantastic film, but they kind of hurt themselves a little bit by trying to do the organic web stuff, and then that just made it easier for Peter Parker to be more reliant on his powers as opposed to reliant on his genius.
So yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed. Like, I'm not a huge Spider-Man knowledgeable person anyway, pretty much, but it's like everybody says that Spider-Man's supposed to be really smart, and I'm like, they never really show that in any film.
He looks smart, but he's actually like completely socially inept with relationships.
No, but I mean, that's what I mean. They say he's smart and intelligent or something. I'm just like, I don't know, based on what? Because he's just, I guess he has books and he's called a nerd, but like, there's nothing that, like, there's not that many situations where he's like using his brain specifically, I guess, to beat the enemy. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the one thing I was really disappointed with in the Raimi films, is even in all of them actually, is that he never uses his head to outwit his enemies. But if you ever watch the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, there's a lot of instances where he's using his head to outwit his enemies, and it's fantastic. One episode in particular is when he's fighting the Rhino for the first time. The Rhino is in this like new suit that's like gives him his superpowers and all that other stuff, but Peter Parker realizes that his body isn't able to breathe. Like, his skin can't breathe. It's all being done through his face, so he's got to like try and cool himself down all the time. So he just keeps on working up a sweat in him because he's basically in a sauna in this suit, and defeats him that way through exhaustion, as opposed to trying to beat him with fisticuffs.
Punch harder, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's what makes Spider-Man really fun, is that he uses his head even though he has these powers. It's who he was before the powers that actually ends up bringing about the victory. And sadly, we haven't seen anything like that before. And it also comes back to Power Rangers a little bit. One of the other big flaws of that series was that Zordon kept on telling them how to beat everybody.
Yeah, that actually kind of pissed me off after a little while. I'm kind of like, God, can they like? I liked it in the green with evil part.
Yeah.
I liked it in the green with evil part when he was taken away for a bit, because it was like, wow, they actually are kind of thinking for themselves for once. Jesus, like that's that was like the only time that they had to think on their own. And I feel like, I'm glad that he's there as like a guidance figure, but it's like always whenever like their Zords get destroyed, it's like, oh, well, they already counted on this, so there's another one right now.
We just got a new monster. It's the Pudgy Pig, and he eats and gets powerful. I'm like, okay, no discovery there.
And like because the enemies like spontaneously create new monsters like out of the blue, and then like Alpha and Zordon just know everything about it and its personality or something, and I'm like, what? You know its abilities. He's swift and agile. How do you fucking know that?
Like we fought them before. Like basically that was the gag of Rita Repulsa, that all the enemies that she uses are from a book that she's used before, and Zordon knows all about it because he's already defeated them.
I never got
mistakes in drama.
I never got that impression. I thought the Clay dude just thinks up random ones and then makes them, and then with the Zed, he just points his staff and just makes them, and it's just like I don't know. I don't know if they portrayed
did do one kind of thing with the Lord Zed putties. Jason discovers that if you punch them in that little icon, they blow
the giant target on the chest.
The giant target on their chest. But if you don't hit that target, then they don't stop. So that was the one revelation that they were able to provide in that second season of Power Rangers.
Oh, you mean on their own, where they weren't told that that's what?
Yeah, because apparently Zordon didn't even know. So.
Yeah, which sorry again, Flip, to make this.
No, it's okay.
I'm saying for Flip because I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know much about Power Rangers, but I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Script Doctor, let's talk the Power Ranger stuff on Saturdays. I'll let you be on that.
We'll work something out for that. That'll be great.
It'll be fun if you have time and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of rotating people in and out so that there's not too many people on the panel for it. So we can each say as much as we need to stuff. But
cool.
So.
Yeah.
So, Flip, did you want anything to ask him?
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, I've been sitting here listening to you guys like I was a listener. I've been doing artwork on my phone. I don't know. What's funny is you'll tend to get into the Power Rangers. I'll tend to get into Star Trek. Is there anything going on in, your type of business that's something interesting and new that you can't, I guess you can discuss? Is there anything that, exciting?
Well, for me, I'm the writer, so I come up with the exciting stuff and hopefully people buy it. I know I have a meeting coming up in the next week or so with an executive for a pilot I wrote, but I can't talk about the pilot other than it's a workplace comedy. And it's a much needed one.
Sure.
So I'm hoping they like it and the meeting goes well, because with the current situation going on right now with the traveling cold, so to speak, everything's being done through email and Skype and Zoom, and so a lot of I'm in a good place right now, because normally I'd be prepping to fly down for my summer campaign in California to get assignment work and try and work on some shows and things like that. But I have a girlfriend up here now, and I don't want to leave her for that long of a time. So I started working out, visits. But then this thing hit, and that's like, well, I guess I'm ahead of the game now. So kind of lucky so far. Everything's kind of coming up, Script Doctor.
Hey, you know what, man? There are times in your life when you're just due, and you just got to enjoy it for sure. How would right? Believe me, I'm trying to find that again for a minute. But how would someone, if they had like a show that they put together, or like not a pilot, so to speak, but just let's say, just something they put together on video, just like any creator in the fandom, if they wanted to show that to someone, how would they shop themselves?
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot of ways. Nobody has a one set rule, but say, for instance, you came up with a short film that had the potential to be an ongoing series. Throwing it up on YouTube is one thing. You can keep it unlisted if you want. And then what you do is you take a look at what your show is, and you try and find other companies or other people that are involved in shows of that genre type or that narrative style. And you look at who their represented by, and then you just send a query email saying, hey, I'm flipped out. I made this little short film. It's of this type of show, which is similar to a talent that you represent. Links in the email. I would like to know your thoughts about it. Is there any potential for me to pursue this to sell? And thank you very much for reading, and have a great day. And hopefully they'll click the link, watch it, like it, and respond back. And if they don't respond back, don't take it personally. In most cases, they usually take months to respond back because everyone's backlogged with stuff.
Sure.
But there is a massive desperation for good story and talent in Hollywood, despite what the results say. It's just that they're trying to figure out how to work in a newer digital environment where the market is global now as opposed to domestic. So they're always looking for something. Don't be afraid to send out an email asking some questions, complimenting the people, like do research of the people you're sending an email to, know the stuff that they do. They have the stuff listed on IMDb. Sometimes they even have phone numbers for their assistants, so you can call the assistant and be like, hey, tell me, I'm doing research on this person. Can you tell me a little bit about what they like, who they are? You'll usually get like a standard package of details about their dossier or something, and that'll help you gauge who they are and how to approach them if you want to try and shop your own original stuff.
Well, I missed it. What was the title of the type of person you mentioned?
Oh, like an executive or an agent or a manager.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's lots of types, like even like
Basically,
producers, especially.
Like people that are under an owner, basically, like not the tippity top, but like right below that kind of.
You can do anything. It doesn't really matter because even if you hit the owner, they'll just send it off to their assistant, and then they'll go through another chain of people. So,
Okay.
And it might loop around all the way back up to the owner again. You never know, really. But yeah, like pay attention to the end credits of a lot of things that you like, that you think the people that made that would like the stuff you're making, and do some research, get some contact information. It is readily available, if not through IMDb, definitely through LinkedIn. Like they're all there.
Wow.
And just probe as you would, and try and network and do things like that. Film festivals are also pretty good. Just do the ones that you can afford and make sure that they're legitimate. There's a lot out there where they claim they'll have people from Hollywood to come look at the stuff. They don't. They usually send out invites to them, but they don't show up because a lot of the time it's about the prestige of the festival. But not a whole lot of people are doing it that much anymore.
How do you like do the process of like getting a film onto a film festival?
You Google the film festival, you go to their website, and they usually have all the instructions you need to submit for the following year. They'll tell you what window is the time to submit. They'll have a couple of forms on there for your press package. So that's where you detail what the movie's about with a synopsis and a log line, who's the cast, who's the director, the budget of the film, genre, still photos of the film, all the things that you need to sort of advertise it, because you got to do all the advertising yourself. And then the festival just kind of like holds it.
And the point is to get people to go to the festival.
Get people to go to the festival and get buyers from studios to watch your product and hopefully approach you afterwards saying that's great and they want to negotiate a deal to buy it and distribute it.
So
Okay.
In some form, when you say, and that's actually great information, I know for Rook, that's for sure. But in some cases, you might aim for, say, a production company or an agent.
Well, an agent's going to help you negotiate whatever deal you get. But agents don't really go after unknown people. In the United States, they're able to solicit to talent that they think is going to help make them money. In Canada, they can't. It's very illegal.
Oh.
It's also why Canada doesn't produce as much stuff up here anymore, because nobody wants to take the time to, seek out talent and encourage and shape and do. Also in Canada, agents and managers are essentially the same thing, but in the United States, your agent kind of negotiates stuff and your manager kind of makes sure your work is up to snuff and marketable. But if you do want to get representation, I'd always suggest seeking out managers first. They're the ones that are going to have your best interest in mind because they actually care about the creative process. The agents just care about the deal. But the best course is to really go after production houses, small ones or big ones. It doesn't really matter. And get them interested in your idea, because if they like you and they like the product you're bringing, agents and managers will come after you because you've been able to sell yourself on your own. And then they can either sponge off you, which a lot of them do, or you'll get lucky with a good pair and they'll just help you grow better as a creative, and you'll start making money and getting jobs and moving around town with new content and ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've just had the question from time to time, and I was curious myself. Once upon a time, I was in a band, and we were offered a significant deal, and I found an entertainment lawyer, and I was wondering. Well, he suggested that I, not just read the contract more carefully, but that I understand that I owe the money that they were basically loaning us. I would owe all that back, etc. I think ultimately I made a smart decision, at least financially. But is that something you come across in the film industry writing side of it? Like you might need to copyright some work, or?
Well, copyright law is kind of broad, especially in Canada and the United States. So once you write it down, it's technically yours. The issue with copywriting is that you cannot really copyright an idea. You can only copyright specific things that are arranged into an idea. So if you want to say like, you can't copyright the story of a hero fighting evil because it's too broad. You can't make that your own thing, and everybody's going to have that type of story.
Reaction videos. That was an actual thing a while back.
Yeah,
where they tried to copyright reaction videos.
Exactly. Like I would do a reaction video, but it's just going to be a still image of me and the trailer. So like, I don't.
Exactly. But yeah, that actually leads me into a question too. So like, have you, like, I assume you've been to film festivals before?
Yes.
Attended them. What is that even like? Because like I think Portland sometimes holds some film festivals, but I haven't like actually gone to one yet. And it's like I'm trying to I'm imagining it being kind of like a street market, but instead of with like foods and random things, it's like just different rooms with film. I don't have no idea what it is.
It's a lot like a movie theater, like a lot. You wait in line, you go in. There's a Q&A at the start of it, maybe a Q&A at the end, or maybe not a Q&A, but maybe an introduction with some of the
where they ask the people who made the film that they're about to watch, basically.
Yep, and then afterwards they come out for a Q&A, and some people stay, some people leave. You then go on to the next movie and then watch that, and like that's basically what you are as like a guest. Even if you're shopping a film around, you're going to watch all the other movies you can because you want to see what other people are doing. They then have network parties. Some festivals have them part of the actual ticket. Others, you have to buy an additional ticket or pass to be a part of the network party. And basically, it's just you're at like a bar or a restaurant, and you're encouraged to move around. And you're supposed to make sure you have tons of business cards and several pitches for other projects ready, and be able to talk about your movie or your short film at the drop of a dime. And it's really just kind of an intrusive environment. It's a lot of fun, though. You just go up to a crowd of people, introduce yourself, and be like, hey, I made this movie or whatever.
Okay, yeah, you could wear a T-shirt and help promote your own thing, pretty much. Like just
you can.
Your own
some people go in there a little bit more formally, like like a nice like a blazer and some casual like dress pants or khakis or something like that. Make it more relaxed. It's not as professional as you would think. The only time you ever see something professional is like red carpet events.
Right.
I've been in offices where some fairly high-ranking people in Hollywood were wearing torn sweatpants and a shirt with a hole in it because they just got back from the gym. They just didn't care to change.
Right.
They don't like. There's so much stuff going on in those worlds that they don't really care so much about fashion during the off hours. And festivals kind of account for that, unless there's a big movie in the festivals.
Well, so like I'm trying to imagine too. So like at a film festival, is it specifically in a building, or is it like they reserve a gymnasium or something? Like it
depends on the location. So for instance, in Toronto, which is about an hour south of me, they have the TIFF Bell Lightbox, which is it's a condominium, but its main this main level is a bunch of theater screens. And it's also got like a big lobby. It's got a dining area, a party room, and all that other stuff. And that's where they host some of their bigger film festival items. They also use a couple of the colleges in the area that have theater rooms, and there's some also normal cinemas that they reserve screens on. And it's all over the place.
I've always thought it like Sundance or something. You'd have a very formal atmosphere, maybe champagne or, some dry white wine being passed around, and only the elite of the elite get in, or maybe even an.
Oh my God.
Well, you're right about the alcohol and that's all in the parties aspect of the things.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I would never call anyone who works in Hollywood elite just because I've seen how they live normally. I totally understand it regarding the prestige and the money that's thrown around. You kind of think, yeah, they're elite, but they're not. A lot of actors who make like $5 to $20 million a movie, they don't even see that money. Like it's there, it's in their name. They don't always have full access to it. It's sometimes like dished out like a trust fund when you're like 18.
Whoa.
Right. Wow.
Just because they try to make sure that the talent is responsible with it, so that they don't die. Because sometimes you get all that money so fast, you go crazy, spend it all, and then you're out on the street.
I'm going to buy a nuclear bomb. Oh, great. You blew all your money.
Well, if you're buying one of those with your money, you're not buying it in the United States. I can tell you that.
It's like people who win the lottery. Like there used to be this show that they would follow people who had just won the lottery, which I think was a terrible idea for anyone to be on that show, because now all your friends and enemies and everyone knows you're rich all of a sudden. But they typically failed and lost most of their money or all of it most of the time.
Yep. And actors are the same way, because actors and talent of that type, all they know is acting. They don't know much of anything else. They try to be in touch with all their emotions so they can get those performances, but they're rather socially ignorant people.
Nicholas Cage.
And not through any of their own fault. Like they're not genetically dumb. They're just all their skills are focused in one area and they don't expand out far much beyond that. Not at least until much later in life.
Right. They're the Marines of acting.
Yeah, and it's all propaganda, which is a big part of the Marines. So
yes,
no disrespect to the people that go through the training and can do the stuff, but
right.
The Marines are far more propaganda than anything else in the military.
Right, but what's actually funny with the lottery thing and people with money is like the book Rich Dad Poor Dad showed some type of study from a while back, or I don't know if it was a hypothetical study or like a real legitimate study, but it was like the idea was they gave like $10,000 to a bunch of people in this one town. There's like a few hundred people or something in the town, and by the end of the month, over like 60% of them were broke. Like they spent it all. I mean, they weren't broke, but they spent that whole 10,000. And then another percentage, a smaller percentage, they didn't spend any of the money at all. They just saved it and didn't touch it, just put it away. That's like a very small percentage, like a few percent or something. Some others like basically spent, they invested in some of it, and like a very small percent invested and got more money. The rest basically, I don't remember. They didn't last very long with their money either. They were in debt or something because they bought expensive things that had payments that they couldn't afford to pay after the 10,000 was spent.
So they could put the down payment on and then they pay it off later.
Yeah, I think that was a good 20%. Like was in debt after the month, and so there's like just a few people invested, a few people saved, and the rest were in up shit's creek pretty much. With the 10,000, just gifted $10,000. I don't know if it was like a legitimate like town study or like just a hypothetical. Here's a hypothetical $10,000. I have no idea, but I don't know.
We had a program similar to that in Ontario a few years ago. It was a pilot program where they got select people got $1,500 a month to do whatever they wanted to, and almost I think it was like 98% of them used it to sort of pay off various debts and curtail rent while they went back to school and kind of lifted themselves out of poverty, and it was actually quite successful. And then we changed political leaders in the province, and then that thing was cut, and then we ended up going into something of a recession up here. So yeah, I mean, it also is, it's it plays to character too. Like, you just can't give somebody free money. There has to be some sort of trade-off, or there has to be some sort of perspective of earning it, or at least earning the ability of trust and responsibility to have that be a repeated thing. Because I may live in a quasi crazy, almost not really socialist country, but even the majority of us don't really believe in redistribution of wealth or gifting people money.
Right. Like, oh, hey, the rich has, that guy has $1 billion. Well, he should give everybody $1 million. It's like,
no. It's like, greed is bad, but like gaining wealth and using something with it is kind of like what the American dream is. At least my understanding of it is, you're not hoarding, you're investing in yourself and spending it up and living the best life you can without harming anyone else. Like, that's kind of how it's supposed to be. But to steer it back, like, you like, actors themselves, like, take for instance Robert Downey Jr. He has a production company called Team Downey. So whenever he pulls in that, like, 20 to 50 million paycheck, all that money is going to his production company. So he's got a lot of employees. All they're doing is they're making sure all this stuff is in order, personal finances. That plus they're also looking for stories that he's going to want to maybe attach his name to, and he doesn't get to keep all that $50 million. That money has to last as long as he's alive for his company, and he's responsible for those people. So he's not always going to be living it up in the highest form, but I mean, compared to a lot of us, he is, because he still makes money off of his movies. But I mean, whenever you hear actors bringing home massive paychecks, what a lot of the public doesn't really understand is that they have their own little business that they have that most of that money goes to keep it around, so that they can still be actors, that they can have their production company can, like, leak stories to papers to keep them still in the news, to keep them still relevant.
Brie Larson.
Yeah, there's that. There's also sometimes they actually hire writers like myself or other people to develop an idea that they have, so that costs money. And that's got to come from somewhere, and it's not going to come from the studio. It's going to come from the actor, and it's not going to come directly out of their pocket. It's going to go to their company, which they get paid for normally on like a weekly or bi-weekly level, so that they can do stuff with taxes easier. Like, there's all these little businesses going on. And then another thing, which you'll find out probably sooner than you'd like, Rookie, is that when you make a movie, you're technically have to register it as an independent business, so that when you can sell it, you're selling the business and all the assets associated with it, so that it can be distributed to other forms of media, and it gets kind of complicated. So even as a director and person self-producing their films, you're going to be dealing with a lot more finances and paperwork and transactions of assets than you ever thought possible, just for being an independent filmmaker. And on top of that, the advertising that you're going to have to do, if you sell a film, you'll have to do a lot of that legwork yourself. They won't be able to rely on the distributor or the production company.
Good to know.
Yeah. So
reinvest it really as they go.
Yes, they have to. Yeah.
Contractually in reinvesting it. Like,
that makes sense.
Well, you've got Tom Cruise, who has a production company. Freaking who you were just talking about again?
Robert Downey Jr.
Jr. has a production company.
Will Ferrell has a production company. Nicolas Cage has a production company.
Jeez. But they get paid out of it, I suppose, like a weekly or bi-weekly. But it's
Some do, yeah. Some of them work that way. Yep.
It's not the $50 million and sitting in the bank earning that sweet interest. It's sort of, that's so strange to me. So they're contractually bound in certain agreements, I guess, or probably most of them, to use that money in a certain way, I guess.
Well, not necessarily contractually. They do it because they want to be relevant. So they consider it, and it's an investment. It's sometimes actors are hired directly, or sometimes they're hired through their own production company, especially if they give a producer credit. So that usually means Their salary goes to the production company, and then a big portion of that goes to them, and then the rest is used to pay for the operation fees and management fees of that production company to find more scripts or fight for the what the actor wants on the during the filming process and post-production process and all those things. So yeah, they're all little businesses all over the place.
Well, so let's play a hypothetical here. Let's say the Rookie's Legends. I'm going to make this a full-on movie. Let's just say that. Let's pretend.
Gotcha.
Like it's a real movie. Like it's going to be a movie. So I want to have people see it, and I want to make money off of it. And so I'd be essentially having to file it like as if it were saying I'm a company now. Like I am.
You would make you'd have your production company, which you'd already register, and I would say if you have the cash, register internationally, just makes things easier down the road. Then you would then start up a small business, which would be the title of your film, or it could be any other title, and its product is going to be the title of the film, say The Rookie Legends. And then from there, you would have you'd open up a bank account under it. You would then put in some money to pay for the production of the film, including your talent and locations and insurance and rent and all that other stuff. And you make sure you have all the records of that, because that is going to be your proof of expenses for when you sell the movie.
You'd have to keep every single type of purchase that
every single type, every meeting that you have, any type of dime that's spent that's related to the production has to all be recorded. Get an accordion folder, get a lot of receipts, get a lot of paperwork, make sure you have contracts that are clearly defined with regards to your cast and crew.
No, like being an independent, how do you just make a contract?
You have there's templates online, just go for it. But basically it's I, the undersigned, hereby provide use of my rights for this character regarding this project in all perpetuity throughout all known media or unknown media in the known or unknown universe and dimensions. And I'm not making a joke there. They actually do universe and dimensions in contracts.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
No.
That's hilarious. I love that.
You seem to know exactly what's written.
I've had to read a couple, and I haven't had to sign too many. Not that I haven't been able to redo myself as my own terms.
So, contracts meaning to keep certain information quiet to a certain point, or agreement that they're going to fulfill the duties that they're being paid for, or something like.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, those types of contracts. They're fun contracts because it's like, hey, I'm getting money.
I got an interesting question from Raging Rhino. You see that, Rook?
Yeah.
He's wanting to ask Script Doctor.
Oh, how does it work with existing IP? I have an idea for a Karate Kid prequel. I've just started writing it. Well, there's no harm in writing it. When it comes to the IP, you have to first find who owns the intellectual rights of that property. And what I would suggest is you send them a query letter being like, I have a potential idea for a prequel. Would you be interested in hearing my pitch with the possibility for a sale and development? And you just go from there. I'm always an advocate for, like, if you have a prequel idea for a Karate Kid, I would do what I mentioned earlier, write it out, then change the names and write a follow-up story to that, and then write a follow-up story to that, and then make it your own. But if you really think it would be great for like the actual Karate Kid legacy, well, you might be able to I don't know if you'll be able to reach out to anyone in YouTube specifically, because they're like the principal producer for the show, but email the gentlemen that are doing Cobra Kai and seeing if they would be interested to help get you started. Just like give them a basic outline of what the pitch is or just the ideas, and see if they'll respond and willing to hear you out for 5 minutes about what your take is, and go from there. And I wish you all the luck if you want to pursue it that way.
Yeah, I feel like he'd have a good chance with it being YouTube and Cobra Kai connected, kind of, and having, considering that the Karate Kid franchise has made quite a bit of money, ideas for more material, I think would go pretty far.
Absolutely, there's always that possibility. You just got to make sure you're talking to the right people who own the intellectual but he writes and would be interested in how it's going. Raging Rhino, if you could also get like a known actor who's be interested in the idea as well, that always helps.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
actors are desperate for work. Doesn't even matter how famous they are. If you give them a juicy role, especially one where they can play like a god or something, all you have to do is just get an email saying, yes, I'm in, and you just show that around and that'll work.
See, surprisingly, I actually do know one actress, kind of. Ray Kennix. She played in the Ahsoka fan film trailer, kind of, and she also has a music video, and her husband is like a director or something, and whatever. And Black Angus and I interviewed her last year, and on YouTube, and that's our only closest connection to like somebody high up, I suppose.
If you really want to get like actors, go to fan conventions and have them do panels. You can always talk to them or talk to their assistants there and hand them a business card or a letter of a pitch and work something out if you can. Like, don't be afraid. Just approach them and say, hey, I'm the rookie critic. I make these movies. I would love to work with you in some capacity. If you want me to deal with your agent, I can do that and work on rates and stuff. But I'm an independent guy. I've got some cool, juicy roles, and pitch them a role. And if they say they're interested and they give you the okay, they'll tell you what to do, and you go from there and see what happens.
It's not a bad idea.
Is there any way to, like Raging Rhino, is there any way like he would be able to protect his idea from them stealing it?
Well, I think the act of him showing it or something, well, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, if he has an email, if he sends it by email, he's automatically protected because the email is going to show the records. The other option being is that, and this is true, more often than not, whatever idea you have, another person is also has that idea. It may not be exact, but it'll be damn close. And there's nothing you can do about it. But the other thing is that very rarely these days do people in Hollywood, especially higher ups, steal ideas. If you have a good idea, they prefer to have you more so than the idea, because if you can generate one good idea, you might be able to generate another, and that means more money and more profit for them.
Interesting.
And also, if your idea is really good, you could be the next hot topic, in which case that also helps the person that found you because it increases their reputation. On top of that, it's your idea. You're probably going to be the best one to execute it, which is what a lot of people usually think. It may have some rough aspects at it that needs to be polished off, but they would know people that could help you do that, and they just kind of want to preserve the new voice, the new talent, the new idea, and get that rolling.
And they might even hire a script doctor to help find.
Yeah, they might hire a script doctor to come in and help you with those developments. Not always, but like sometimes. Depends. They usually have their own people.
Insight.
But yeah, like theft is not something you really have to worry about too much in Hollywood, because one, scripts are always being passed around, so everybody's going to recognize the writing style pretty quickly. And two, if it does get produced, you can always make a court claim, and if you have the receipts that you did it first, or that the final project is incredibly similar to what you pitched, even though it's done under different names and different people, there might be a case for it. But one, you're going to have the money because it's going to be really expensive, and two, you better know it's a fight worth fighting for.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Anas Abdeen thing, where there's a lot of similarities that overlap between his point-and-click game and Star Trek Discovery.
Star Trek
But I think when he started out, he got the worst legal team he could, because they went for CBS when in those types of cases you go for the production house that actually produced and wrote the thing, which would be Secret Hideout. But I think his new legal team is doing that now. At least I hope they are.
I was just talking to somebody about that. The Continuum. He mentioned that what's his name? Amas. I can never get it right.
Abdeen, yeah,
that's right. And that he had actually taken some of his ideas from some other people. Like there's like a planet that he uses that's from a video game out of the 80s and stuff like that. I guess it can get really complicated, when you use other things for inspiration to make your product, your creation. Then later on, like you realize that someone like a CBS or something allegedly, took some of your stuff. I guess
Well, I think it's kind of like on Shark Tank is the best example I can pull up myself here. Is that like they'll say, "Hey, do you have a patent on that?" And they go, "We have a patent on the exact type of form of this handle on this type of material of equipment that is a bowl or something." It's like super specific, and that is what they have their claim on, because you can't say bowl. I have copy. You can't. No one else can make a bowl. It's like, no, you can make a bowl and you can have handles, but what about this is what
are the specifics?
That is different. What about your product is different, and what can't other people copy because it's never been done before? That you have to be very specific on what exactly is the type of patent or copyright or whatever for it. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so you were saying that a NOS would really need a very decent legal team, and you said he chose poorly.
Well, yeah, because he's not a U.S. citizen. My understanding is he's from another country, works in computer programming and whatnot. But when he was informed of this, I guess he went to the personal injury lawyer that he was recommended to, and they probably thought this was a juicy case to go after a big kahuna type of thing. But it's not. Like in my experience, my understanding is that you always make the accusation to the actual culprit. So CBS is basically, think of it this way. Secret Hideout is a used car lot. And one of their employees stole a NASA Beam's car and then gave it a new paint job and then sold it to CBS. And CBS has no idea of the original owner of it, because why would they? They just bought the car. And then what ends up happening is that someone is now suing you who bought the car for the car back, and you're like, well, I bought this legally from this guy, so why are you suing me? He's like, well, it's stolen goods. It's like, well, I'm not knowing it's stolen goods, so you have to prove that it's stolen goods, and why are you coming after me? When, if anything, they should have approached CBS and said, hey, I think Secret Hideout stole this car that you now own. I'm going to be taking it up with them. Could I have your cooperation regarding this, because I can prove, with the car registry and stuff, that you are in possession of this and you've been swindled. And at that point, CBS would be like, you know what? Yes, if we are in possession of stolen goods, that's not good for us. So we're going to side with you and we're going to investigate Secret Hideout. And if that investigation reveals that, yes, they took it, then their ties will be severed, and then you can pursue legal action. And that's how it should have gone. But it didn't go that way because I guess the legal team he used was a little greedy and a little overwhelmed, and they decided to go after CBS and Netflix, which don't have anything to do with the creation of Star Trek Discovery. They buy and distribute. They don't create. Secret Hideout creates, and you don't. And that's the issue that's at hand here. And if it doesn't go after Secret Hideout, then he's going to lose, and that result could open up some floodgates that would end up hurting other creators of independent content.
Well, and plus, court cases drain bank accounts extremely, right? Like, a lot of people might think, oh, like $10,000, right? No, like $50,000.
That's for like a day's work. How
long is this going to go? That can depend. You have 100,000? It's still maybe more than that.
And unless you have a lawyer that's saying, listen, I'll work pro bono, but take like 30 to 60% of the settlement. It's going to be very, very pricey.
Right.
We were just talking about this in that same stream I was just mentioning with the Continuum, and in the 80s, we had we had bands that would take samples of other bands' music and use them in their piece. Gosh, I can't remember any.
Was it called looping?
Yeah, looping, like Aerosmith and Run DMC. That was actually they actually asked Aerosmith if they could use it, but in many cases they would not ask. I think Vanilla Ice was one of the
famous
first
for Under Pressure. Yeah, Bowie and Queen.
Yeah. And I'm not sure of the outcome of that. It continued on for some while, but then I guess it still continues today. But then you also have the Fair Use Act, and that also ties into what we do. We use other people's artwork in our own pieces on YouTube. But to what degree I guess that's where there's probably an ongoing situation in all types of art.
It's probably never been 100% like guaranteed filled out or worked out. It's still always case by case in some cases, or in most of the time.
Yeah, usually it is. It is a case by case thing. Like even the fair use policies under the U.S. Constitution are broad enough to the point where they can be disputed based on anything. Now, the brilliant part about intellectual property is that so long as you do not make any money and you can prove that you're not making any money, you can kind of do anything you want with intellectual property. The other thing you have to worry about is that it's not going to impede the sales of the actual intellectual property owners with whatever product they're using it for, which is almost impossible to predict.
Right, and I think a common thing that I see in some parodies and or fan films is that they say either in the beginning and or at the end to please support the original or the official release or something. So it's like, please, like in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, it's always, please support the official release. It's a parody of blank, 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 follow Toei and whatever, all the things, and go watch the real ones too.
Exactly. That's what ended up happening with a lot of the Star Trek fan films for decades. They'd always be like, please support Star Trek, please buy the DVDs and watch the shows and all that other stuff. And that was to CBS's benefit. And then Les Moonves came around and got all pain in the ass about it.
Yeah, but real quick, so Culture Casino had another point, had a different point to bring up. He said, running into any new digital representation rights for after death use. I assume he's talking about like Leia or Tarkin or like people using people's face. I guess using their likeness after they're dead. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Well, technically, Lucasfilm owns the likeness of Grand Moff Tarkin. They technically don't own the likeness of Peter Cushing because you
they can't use his face in a different movie, but in Star Wars they can.
Yeah, like they can't use his face as a different character in a different film. The likeness rights are usually specific to the character they're playing, unless someone is really sneaky and says, "I own the likeness rights to Peter Cushing," in which case the estate of the family can't do anything. So that's like new territory, and it's really hard to navigate. And I haven't had any experience with that yet, but I can imagine it'd be kind of a nightmare, especially with like the deep fakery technology that's out. And obviously what they did with Rogue One. But my understanding is that they had the likeness rights, but they still asked permission to the estate, and I think they paid out to the estate as well, because it's just good business practice to maintain positive relationships with the estates of anyone that owns any intellectual property, whether it's personal or public, because the last thing you want is litigation. So
okay,
it's usually smart for Hollywood to make that approach. Even to this day, I think still the Siegel and Schuster families still own the rights to Superman, and they sell off the movie rights every couple of years to Warner Brothers. Like Warner Brothers renews them under certain contractual conditions. Either they buy them and a producer then buys them from there, and they have like X amount of years to produce a Superman film in order to retain them, or they got to keep paying out more and more and more. So.
Well, so I guess that makes sense. Like a company can own like a character likeness, rather like they can't just like make a movie with a dead actor's likeness specifically, but they can use the character that the actor so happened to represent.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, Max von Sydow recently passed away. If someone wanted to make a brand new movie with Max von Sydow's face in it, they'd have to go to his family's estate and ask permission to do that. But if they say want to do a sequel to The Exorcist with Max von Sydow, they would still have to go to the estate to do that out of politeness, but they could probably play around with that a little bit without much of an issue.
Where do you stand? I'm just curious. Where do you stand on using people's likeness after death in movies?
I don't know yet. I haven't made a decision on that. I mean, it's creepy. I'll say that.
I don't know if there's enough of them to really get a good feel on it yet. There's only been a few, as far as I know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say I'm of the mind where if you're going to try and copy a character's likeness, do it in animated form, because at least you can get a voice actor that can replicate the voice of the original actor.
Right.
You're able to do something new with them, and it doesn't feel like you're playing puppets with a corpse. so to speak.
I like that answer because my whole thing is like, even like with casting or something, you can cast somebody else to play as it, even if it's not like if they don't look like the exact person or something that passed away, but this way they're not bringing up the dead. I know, because that is kind of weird. It's like, hey, look, remember that this person's dead, but
yeah, it's like Weekend at Bernie's, literally. So
it's like that's kind of a weird concept, and I feel like that also takes away the creativity of and the passion that actors can go with. Because I feel like there's some people, whether it's impersonators or just really good actors or something, that can play a role. Like let's say somebody that exists today could play a Princess Leia, essentially, like a younger one or current one or whatever.
Oh,
like,
they're out there.
I feel like that's possible, and I'd rather have that than them digitally redo her face or pull up. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of weird. It's like, yeah, I'd rather them not use Carrie Fisher's face now since she's dead.
Yeah, and
if you're gonna do it, which is ridiculous, by you're to continue the character of Leia, but if you wanted to, I'd prefer like a recasting.
Yeah, I kind of side on that. And the other part too is like, as great as deep fakery is, it doesn't work. It's not very convincing on the profile. Even some of the best stuff I've seen, you can tell that it's not legit, or like it's not the actual person, because the computer algorithm cannot match the profile to also match the front view. So you can take the look at the recent Back to the Future scene with Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
At any time they sort of stare at each other, like where you can see them, like the left side of the face or the right side of the face only, it doesn't match up. Everything's kind of like tapered off and kind of squished on the side. And then as soon as they angle just back towards camera, then they start looking like, Robert Downey Jr. and them again.
Well,
and
have
that's
you heard?
kind of like, yep.
Have you heard of Corridor Crew?
No, I don't think I have.
It's a great YouTube channel. These guys work in the film industry, special effects, CGI guys. You would love their channel. In fact, I will drop it here in the link. Corridor Crew.
Yeah, do that. I want to check. Like, I love the idea of deep fakery stuff because you can have some fun with that, because you can use the same algorithm and take the deep fake and then animate it into a 3D model that's more cartoony, and still get the same type of performance out of it.
Oh yeah, no. As a matter of fact, I agree with you on the profile thing. And there are ways that, and I've just watched a lot of this stuff, but there's ways to get around that with prosthetics and the plus deep fake and deep fake voice. I happen to be, I guess I'm the only one here in our group, but I happen to be a big proponent of using after death likeness, because not that, don't mistake me, I'm not really big on sequels and reboots though, because they can't seem to ever get it right anymore. Maybe the best time they ever did that was in the 80s. However, I am interested in seeing new movies made. I think they're making one with James Dean as we speak, but it would have to be done right, respectfully, of course. And I believe maybe it should be something moving forward. Like if I were a big time actor, I'd like to put it in my will or a contract that should I die, for my family's sake, you may use my likeness in movies or something.
For X amount of dollars based on the current dollar value.
Yeah, so I'm a proponent as a fan and as a, someone who thinks that would help the, people in a family in the industry. But to me, these guys at Corridor Crew, if you haven't seen them, they've done some really cool stuff. The robot that they created, oh God, what do they call it? They're like military robots, Boston Dynamics. You ever heard of them?
I've seen Boston Dynamics, and I've seen a bunch of their fake videos of Boston Dynamics, which are hysterical.
Oh yeah, Corridor Crew, that's them.
That's them, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you get a real kick out of it.
Yeah, I saw the one that they made where the robot takes the gun from the guy and then holds him up, and I thought that was funny.
It's killer. So I just was saying, yeah, I think it'd be cool, but I also know that there's a lot of people out there who, unlike you guys, who are like, well, I instead of take it or leave it, I'd leave it. But there are people out there very upset about it.
Well, it's like think of old people. They'll be like, "Didn't they die 30 years ago?" No, they're in a new movie. Like,
well, it's not only that. While they may be able to do a deep fake with regarding the physical appearance and maybe the voice match, they're still going to miss the soul that comes from their performance. Like, because it's a computer predicting a choice based on a pattern of behavior, but actors aren't really big on patterns of behavior when they approach brand new roles. So, for instance, if you want to do like 40 years from now a deep fake of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, they could probably keep doing him as Iron Man that way. But if they wanted to give him another role where he's playing a completely different character, it's not going to be a Robert Downey Jr. performance that's recognizable as all the other performances he's had and the different takes he's done.
I think that'd be a good robotic movie, I guess. Just the likenesses of dead people, and it's just like, oh, you guys seem to be human, but like,
quirks and their little subtleties.
Yeah. It'd be like the original Westworld movie, where like they all behave very much like humans and stuff, but they're still machines, and the only way you can tell the difference is based on their hands, because they can't get the hands just right. They all look weird. But you're still living in a world where you have fake humans, and they're playing a role, and sometimes they follow the role, and sometimes they get a computer virus and start hunting you down.
We're worried about deep fakes and stuff like that in the future. They may have freaking androids that do all the acting.
They could. The one thing that you'll never have to be worried about is an artificial intelligence conquering humanity, because every team that's working on AI is not doing it right. So we're okay there.
Damn. Well, I don't want them to take over, but I do want to see like some artificial intelligence like get ridiculously smart, way beyond, but that's a scary and another subject. But
yeah, well, our AI is only a byproduct of a mechanical device. You can't program it, otherwise it's just simulating a pattern of human behavior.
I know, like on Star Trek, they have the computer. You're like, hey, computer, show me Deck 5. But then you've got Google. Oh shit, I didn't want it to go off. But but
I actually wrote a joke like that into a Star Trek spec script I wrote, where they got the computer program, they got the computer installed, and every time they say the word computer, accidentally triggers the prompt. So any words following that, the computer tries to recognize, and it can't reconcile the order, and it says and it starts asking the crew to restate it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like they do that on commercials too. I'll be sitting chilling, and like I'll be watching YouTube. All of a sudden, a Google commercial pops up, and it's like, hey, Google. And
then the device activates in your home.
It does, and I've got them throughout the entire house. So
tell the story, Flip. Tell the story.
Oh yeah, I had I think these things might. Okay, so I'm not a real big believer of like evil, ghostly, entities floating around me, but Ghost in the Machine. Now that may be possible. At least from experience. One night I was laying down watching who knows what, and the remote was at the end of the bed, and I was going to slide it up to me, but I accidentally kicked it off the bed. This was close to 2 a.m. And so I went over, and just being like a goof, like tired, lazy, I bend all the way over, but I keep my legs as straight as possible. And I pick it up, and as soon as I do, the Google says, there's a yoga studio 1.3 miles from here. Would you like me to give you the address? What the fuck? It was the weirdest thing, man. It creeped me out because I don't know. There's no camera on the thing, so there was no mistake or someone watching me. This is really strange, really weird.
See, I thought you were going to say the one about like the fart song or something.
Oh, okay. Have you ever? That's just like having fun with your Google. But I was sitting in here one night, and my son was with me, and my daughter was in bed, and my mom and dad were asleep too, and they were in far across the house. But I thought it'd be funny to like just see if it had a song that I just made up. So I said, "Okay, computer, play Wipe My Butt," and I just made that up. Instantly, the song starts playing on every single Google in the house except mine. And there is a song called Wipe My Butt. So, yeah.
Well, because of that, you could probably safely sleep at night knowing that if a Google device can't figure out what your intentions are, they're probably not going to be able to figure out how to conquer humanity.
Yeah. Well, that could play along to what you were saying, though. You can't. it's not real AI. It's pre-programmed.
It's called simulated intelligence. There is something on YouTube. I wish I had the link like saved. I saw it years ago, but it's a recording in 1970s in the UK where a gentleman is explaining why you cannot have artificial intelligence as what's going on here. And it's also around the same time they proposed, I think it was a $1 million prize for programming an AI that can actually fool the majority of people into thinking it's artificial. And he goes over it quite in detail, which is essentially boils down to an artificial intelligence would have the ability to imagine something from nothing. And it's based off of some of the stuff that Isaac Asimov wrote in his I, Robot novel, short stories. And that's the key goal is you can build, for instance, like a positronic brain, give it some basic programming of like observing and processing information, and then from every generation that comes after that, from that point, you will eventually reach an intelligence in a mechanical being that's works and follows the same rules as an organic intelligent being, and that would be a true AI.
Yeah, but not sentient.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, would it be sentient at that point? Because it's self-programming. Because that's what an AI is that we, as a byproduct of organic beings, like our intelligence is from strange mutations and breeding, which we then call evolution, and it's a byproduct of our survival and what we can observe and process and understand. That can be done the theory is that it can be done mechanically at one point, and then from there, you then have your artificial intelligence. But with if you're programming it, you're only programming, you're establishing preconditions. So, in other words, you could program a line. Well, if someone says this bad thing to the AI, they're going to respond angry because that's how we recognize it. But an AI doesn't have emotions, so you're just kind of it's all simulated. It's not real. But an actual intelligence can recognize like an insult and react accordingly. They can either be angry, they can either brush it off, they can ignore it, they can respond with their own insult. That's the stuff that a lot of programmers don't understand how to create without a pattern, and as a result, we're never going to have an AI that will ever threaten us or ever be compared to what we've seen in our fiction. So don't worry about it.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we have Tom joining us from Midnight's Edge.
Hello.
As we're about to close, and he can only be here for a couple minutes anyway, so perfect. How's it going, man?
It's going, and how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Talking some AI at the moment with this, and how
that movie sucked.
How we'll never have.
Spielberg was trying to do Kubrick, Kubrick I think was trying to do Spielberg in that movie. So.
We'll never have a real Judgment Day, I guess, with AI.
Darn it.
No, I mean if you're trying to print something and your computer says it can't print, and it's because you recognize the printer's not plugged in, but the computer doesn't, you're okay.
It makes sense.
And I was hoping. Damn.
Yeah, but did you just come off a stream, Tom?
I've been doing nothing but streaming all day long.
Oh boy.
I hope that's delicious, Tom.
I'm finally eating something.
Hooray, McDonald's? No, just kidding.
Doritos.
Hell yeah. Cool Ranch or cheese?
Nacho cheese.
Nacho cheese. Hell yeah. Loving it. Well, we are actually just about to start winding down, closing out here. We talked over quite a bit of stuff over here again today, and been out about 2-hour stream, so this is pretty good. Any last things that you guys wanted to bring up or anything?
Kumquats are like little orange grapes.
Thank you.
That is true.
I didn't know that.
Indeed.
I want to thank you, Rookie and Flip, for inviting me on tonight. It's been great chatting with you. I find that as I do more of this YouTube stuff, I'm finding less and less time for real world things. And I'm also because there's so many people I've met in the last 6-7 months on this channel, just trying to make time to talk to everybody and have good conversations is way frustrating. I hate it. I want more time.
I know what you mean. I wish there was 36 hours in a day, but that probably still wouldn't even be enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but yeah, it's been good having you too as well, man. You always have great conversation, great stuff to bring to the table over here, and it's always interesting. I'm going to add you to my Power Rangers roster for Saturday nights. If I don't know when you'll be able to come on to some of those, but
we'll figure out a way to make some time. I like talking Power Rangers because they're fun, they're hysterical, the source material is great, and then the direction that they take in some of their seasons is crazy, and it's just I like to be able to kick back and just see some. It's kind of wholesome too, so I like kind of seeing those sides.
It's like the whole the making of them, how they got to certain points, certain things the actors do. Like there's more than like just the movies or shows themselves. So there's lots of story around Power Rangers.
Yeah, and one day I'll probably pitch you guys the script that I wrote way back that was rejected.
That'd be great.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Especially based on what we got in the movie.
I mean,
I think it's better, and my cousin through marriage who did compositing for that movie thought my script was better. So
I bet.
And I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it would give some insight into your way of writing. That would be awesome.
Oh yeah, I'd love to share a little bit about that as opposed to just being the analyzing guy.
Yeah. And we have a link to the Script Doctor's YouTube channel down in the description below. And I think Flip's been dropping the link down every now and then. Mm-hmm. And Tom, anything you want to say other than the kumquats?
I've never tried one.
All right. And Flip, so Flip, tell everybody about the new Fandom Menace card thing.
Oh, right. So we're doing these.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That is cool.
They're called the Fandom Menace.
I want one.
We would love to make these too, like for real. Perhaps later we will. They're Fandom Menace collective cards, and we're having everyone vote on the Fandom Collective Twitter every day who wants to see what person the following day. And right now,
now that features thing, you should put that on the back and have that as powers.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah, powers. I like
He's
that.
a Lord of the Rings master. Look at that.
It's pretty cool. We have
500 hit points.
the young lady who does these, her name is Daniela, and on Twitter her tag is @DAAN_TFM, and she'll be making these daily for us until.
Tell her to get a hold of me.
A link to her Twitter is in the description below as well.
I will do that.
Mine would be the most plain looking one because I'm a very plain looking person.
You know what? I bet it wouldn't cost us that much to get a campaign together for these either. Actually make some trading cards. Seriously.
For real.
Fandom Menace trading cards.
Fuck
that's
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant, man.
I feel like it would be best if we could use them as if it was like for a game that we can play
That's
against.
why I said like 500 hit. Well, no, because then you start getting into like,
don't make hit points equal to subscriber count. That would just be crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might get a little too, but no, like the whole features thing. Yeah, turn that into like superpowers, on the back, and of course then you have like Nerdrotic has been around since whatever, a little bit of a actual like
history
of the channel and stuff.
No, those would be great lanyards for like meetups and stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So we're going to be trying to push her and her work that she's doing every now and then. And yeah, the polls to vote on it. We had Lethal Lightning won the poll of the last one. So
he's up.
We did post his card up today on Twitter as well. And I'm going to retweet that. I didn't see that yet, but yeah, we're going to do that. And we're just getting these going. She's doing great work. And yeah.
I think I'm serious about that. Get a hold of me about that.
Sure. It looks like Mecha Random will be tomorrow. I will. I'll DM you, Tom.
Yeah, because I think it wouldn't cost that much for us to get get them made up. It just depends on how many we have to get made. That's really all it is.
True, but also for her, I'm not sure right now if she's ready to do that because she just.
Well, it takes time. Obviously, you got to design them all and all that stuff, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It's worth pursuing, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, it may be a year or two before we get it out there, but hey, you know what? I like that idea.
Well, thank you very much.
She'll love to hear that.
Yep, I'll let her know.
And I'm an old Topps cards fan. I used to collect all the old movie cards and shit.
Yeah, I still have some cards from the 1989 Batman.
Oh
movie.
shit, I do too. And Batman Returns. I mean, I lost a lot of my stuff in Housefire, but like since then I've regained. Like I got Who Framed Roger Rabbit and some Gremlins ones and stuff. Oh yeah.
You can get your Fandom Menace collector's pack or something, and
There you go. That's what I'm saying. And then you have Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3. You know,
that's not a bad idea. And
it's something you can kind of spread over time. Yeah.
it's not a bad idea in a way. It's not bad. Although it's funny for the amount of people that's denounced themselves from being the Fandom Menace when they were the Fandom.
Well, of course, like the first.
That's,
Well, the first 10 cards, of course, have got to be like all the pillars and, you know, like world-class bullshitters and,
of course,
you know, all those guys and stuff. And maybe even us. I don't want to toot our horn too much, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
I mean, it's a hashtag. I mean, you can support it or not, right?
It's just funny the people that denounce it, and it's just like, okay, you were totally for it a minute ago, and now you're like, no, I'm not.
Opportunists, to say the least.
And these aren't specifically Fandom Menace, but she's like looking at people that she's met in the Fandom Menace and just making the cards. Anyway,
Well, I know, but
channels, but
That's
Making
why
them
we're
a-
calling them the Fandom Menace Collective cards.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose I know Bill and I got to get rolling here too, so I'll let you finish up your bit here.
Yep.
Because I'm going to scooch out on you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the cards, Flip?
Oh no, I'm super excited about showing them off, and I love the idea, Tom. That is just an excellent idea. I'll talk to her, and of course, touch base with you. That's really cool.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, just hit me up on Twitter. My thing is on my name there.
Yeah, he's the Tom Connors Midnight's Edge profile. I think,
I know.
I think there's more than one. I think there's more than one Midnight's Edge.
I know he followed my girlfriend before he followed me. I know
Yeah.
who he is.
I follow just about everybody who follows me. I won't only on certain circumstances, and that's either A, you have like 0 followers, so obviously you're like some kind of puppet account.
Yeah, usually a troll or some kind.
Yeah, or B, if you actually put in your description like your gender description and all that
All
kind
the
of
pronoun
crap,
stuff,
He,
yeah.
she,
your pronoun crap,
Say
then
that- say
likely, not likely, am I going to fucking follow you back.
I'm not going to see what you post today.
But to be
Oh,
fair, there's
yeah.
also people on the other side where they've gotten too much of the rhetoric that I've unfollowed or don't follow back. If it gets to be too much, it's like I don't care as long as you're not posting a bunch of weird shit. Then
Oh, I just realized for the trading card thing, Tom has got a couple of characters, so you got to do some of those, like his Frank Marshall and his Bat Tom.
yeah, those will be bonus cards. There you go.
Yeah, like Frank Marshall just like screaming and pointing Congo, and
Well, there'd probably be the Midnight's Edge package, the Geeks and Gamers package. Who knows?
Congo.
But thank you everybody for joining us. It's been a fun little stream over here. Culture Casino, the Continuum, Raging Rhino, Riot Kitty, everything Star Wars. Thank you everybody for coming on down.
yeah, some great questions, guys. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been fun talking with everyone tonight.
It's been a pleasure, man. Always is.
Hell yeah. And links in the description below. I didn't link Tom because he didn't show up until he's
No,
late.
that's fine. Don't worry about me. I'm a
Before-
Yeah, you don't have to worry about me either. I'm just having fun here and trying to,
just
unclog the
show my
head.
support for Jeff. That's about it. So, but I'm gonna check out because I gotta go, and I know Bill's gonna follow me shortly. So I'll let you guys do your
Yep.
outros. Take care, everybody.
Later, man.
Later.
All right, so I'm just gonna play a couple little videos to promote some comics and have us go out. So,
all right, groovy.
all right. Are you trying to create a comic book? Do you have an upcoming project or video that you want to bring attention to? Well, if you make a 27-second or less video trailer/promo, we will play it on our live streams between topics and possibly at the end of our videos. Email us at thefandomcollective@gmail.com or Flippin' Rookie on Twitter and we'll set you up. Have a good one, guys. We shall rise together.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!